Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So yeah, I guess we can, dive in. I've been in the game industry a long time, and seen a lot of different changes. And with Web3 coming, got into it a couple of years ago. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about what I've seen and experienced over the last couple of years. And do you want to?
Sure, I'll do a quick intro. So, hi everyone, I'm Akio Tanaka from Infinity Ventures Crypto, which is a new token fund that we established last year. And we are actually part of a larger global VC firm called Headline. And so my background, like Tony, is that I've been in the gaming industry, but more from the investment side for the last 20 years. And last year, we established a token investment fund that invests heavily into the gaming space. Just to give you how crazy we were, in about a year's time, we invested in about 180 projects. About half of them are either blockchain game or GameFi related. So I think we are right now probably the most active investor in blockchain gaming space in Asia. And Circle is one of our LPs, just to be fully transparent here.
Yeah, and one of the questions I thought would be great for the audience to hear is, with the investments from that you guys have done previous to now, what are some of the things that have changed and that you're looking for in companies, and your observations on what's happened over, let's say, the last year.
Yeah. So if you think of this kind of space, I think really the beginning of the current beginning of blockchain gaming really happened, I think, in early 2021, when some of the countries in Southeast Asia, especially the Philippines, went into lockdown mode due to COVID. And what happened was during that time, some of the big game titles like Axie that everyone probably knows by now already existed, but wasn't that hot yet. But what happened was about spring of last year, most of the towns in the Philippines went into a pretty strict lockdown. And then people, when they were not doing anything, they couldn't go to work, they couldn't go to school, found blockchain games. And what they have, of course, found was play-to-earn games where, basically by playing daily, they can actually make a small income. And maybe it's small income for most of you here, but for some of them actually was maybe better income than working at McDonald's. And suddenly, the game broke out and became a new category. And so last year basically was a year of discovery. And of course, with every new trend, just like when smartphone gaming arrived, you see lots of small guys show up first, right? They try to catch on the trend, while bigger players are still watching to see whether it's a short-term trend or something that's bigger. So we have seen last year lots of small game developers emerge, investing or trying to develop single titles. And I would say so that the last year, big portion of our investments were early game titles in this space. But this year, things have changed. And one of the things, of course, the market has, in some areas, has collapsed and token prices have come down. And during this time, some of the earlier developers focus on single game title, I think switched to a more studio model. So this year, we've been investing in more game studio. So what's the difference between last year's and this year's game developers? Well, this time, we're seeing now more experienced players coming into the space. They kind of watched and seen what worked, what didn't. And the new generation of players that's coming in have far more experience in gaming. Maybe less in blockchain, but at least, but in terms of gaming experience, they have better gaming experience and also ability to produce bigger game titles that have a higher element of playing, perhaps less element of earning, but definitely high on playing. So those kind of studios are emerging. And so we thought valuations will go down. Well, on the single game title developers, valuation has come down, but some of those bigger studios are, in fact, still raising money at decent valuations. And two notable players that came into the studio model and the large players we backed this year one is a Korean game company called Compass, and they have now a dedicated blockchain studio and raised money to do this endeavor. And then there is another player from China, FunPlus. You've probably heard of them, another significant player. They have also created a dedicated game studio to do blockchain gaming. Now, one interesting thing happened was when Compass came into play, originally they were going to build on top of Terra ecosystem. And of course, before they could build it, Terra ecosystem sort of collapsed. So now they had to figure out where they're going to, whether they're going to do their own thing or attach it onto someone else's platform. And since we're investors in both, we got them together. So now they're jointly developing kind of a common platform. So we see this a little bit more organized studio and the platform approach emerging this year. It's a big change from last year.
And I agree that the movement of just smaller studios who are trying to jump into a lot of the bigger folks now are starting to get involved, like mid-level and large studios. And I think it's because at the beginning everybody's hesitant, like what is this new thing? And yeah, it takes a year or two. And I think the quality of a lot of the games is starting to change. We're right at the verge of that because, again, at the beginning of anything, there's always a rush. So I know that some folks in the space who are trying to acquire titles to just pick them up and shove them out and to like be first, that resulted in a lot of these games of really low quality, which also made a lot of, at the end of the day, it's the player who, makes the game. So
you probably remember some of the shitty games that showed up on smartphones initially. They were not really smartphone native games, but they just quickly modified whatever they had and put it on the iPhone.
Yeah, there was a period where people were just grabbing Unity templates and doing a little bit of reskinning and trying to shove a game out.
Yes.
And then bolt on NFTs, and there was a lot of that. I think that's changing. Like at the beginning of free to play, a lot of similarities, in my opinion, there, where it was a new model. Everybody kind of freaked out, like, oh my God, I have to spend money now. Whoa, what is this terrible thing? And then once we started doing it right and a great player experience and people got the freedom to spend money on what they wanted to, then it really changed how it became the dominant model. And I see a lot of parallels.
Yes, actually, yeah. Of course, there are some new innovations that's happening as a blockchain game on the token side. However, fundamentally, if you just look at not from the developer's point of view, but from player's point of view, there's a big similarity between free-to-play and blockchain games. For example, if you go all the way back to, say, Warcraft, right, those days, what were the things players needed to play a game? Well, first you have to create an account, right, where all your assets get deposited, all your playtime, items you purchase. Well, that's now turned into MetaMask. It's your account. And then, in-game items that you either used to play to earn or pay money to acquire. These are now turned into in-game NFTs. And it's still the same concept. And of course, instead of earning gold in the game, you might earn tokens, which is what happens, say, in games like Axie. So actually, a lot of concepts that started in free-to-play games actually exist today in blockchain gaming. The only difference is, of course, now everything, well, not everything, but a lot of things are running on blockchain, which means that those items that exist can be more easily traded, which used to be frowned upon by game developers.
Yeah. Yeah, there was the whole, external market.
Yes, real money trading and stuff like
Yeah. And it's funny, some groups eventually just embraced it.
Yeah.
And other groups would, if you're caught trading our items, we're going to ban your account. When you see things happening like that, and I remember when that happened, and that is when it got in my mind of, these items, are they actually owned by these folks? What is the status of the ownership? And in working with game developers, and I work with a lot, but for the last couple of years in helping them build their economies, design it out. Some folks come in thinking that Web3 and NFTs are replacement. It's the next new big thing, replacement of free to play, and that's not true. I look at free to play as where we got the freedom to spend money on what we want to, and then Web3 is, I would call it enhanced digital ownership. Now the things that I have spent money on and have spent time on that I've got and that I've earned, I can now do things with, and they're persistent. So, when working with developers, I say, like, one developer recently, I just said, and I had told Akio this earlier, I said, look, your game design needs to be completely reworked because you tried to come at everything Web3 first. I said, go design your game, build a free-to-play economy, take it back to me, and then we will weave in the Web3 elements to take the items that people are getting and create real digital ownership. And they had to go back to the drawing board. But there's a lot of developers that make that mistake because they are like, we're going to jump in right now, and and it just puts up barriers. And I think that's one of the ways that right now, I mean, a lot of Web3 games are, the audience is pretty tiny because there's so many barriers to get in. You have to go through KYC, you have to, do all these registrations up front, you've got to, go get a MetaMask or some other wallet and then connect that. And the typical gamer is going to look at that and go, I want nothing to do with this, I want to just go play a game.
Yeah, so, that's actually an interesting point. I want to actually, Tony, share one data point. So, this year, a lot of people thought, this is like a crypto winter. There's less investment going on. But if you just look at gaming space alone, last year was the first year that lots of VCs like us started investing heavily into blockchain gaming. And this year, for the first 6 months of the year, already surpassed all of the investments we made from last year, not just for us, for the whole VC industry. And it turned out, it was kind of surprising, that 6 months of investment activity this year on the blockchain gaming side by VCs already surpassed investment into traditional gaming. So if you think of all the VC activities, we are investing ahead of time, right? Because whatever we invest today into game studios or any gaming efforts is not going to ship until probably next year. But so if you think about all the new stuff being invested by investors globally and now weighing more towards blockchain games, so there must be something more massive coming down the road. That's something that has more perhaps emphasis on playability and bringing on masses. Now, one of the things actually I wanted to emphasize in this conference, right? We are at Circle Conference, and we're talking about bringing this digital currency and digital economy to wider audience. And most of the sessions here are focused on things like DeFi. But if you look at DeFi today, it is being used by a super minority of the whole internet economy, right? If you think about like successful DeFi protocols, people are excited if you have like 100,000 daily actives on DeFi protocol, that's considered, wow, it's a major protocol. But in a gaming, you only see 100,000 daily active, okay, it's not a bad amount of game.
Yeah. Did you just launch a week ago?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the, I think, the potential that I see with all the investments going on and the gaming as the entry point for blockchain for a lot of new people, I think this might be the way the next millions and hopefully tens and hundreds of millions of people are actually bought into blockchain. And so we think this is actually Trojan horse for the whole crypto industry. If you're worried about, oh, our industry doesn't really have enough people. But I think maybe gaming will change. And at least from the investment point of view, we're investing in a broad segment of blockchain gaming industry. And many of them are going after mass gamers. And some of our investors, which include actually Sega, where you used to work with, and other major game players from Asia, like Bandai and Square Enix. These guys are now actually looking into blockchain gaming. And these companies will go out of business if they only had 100,000 users. So we will have people with different kind of thinking entering this space.
Yeah, and I was recently having a talk on expanding the audience on how to get Web 2 players into Web 3, which speaks exactly to this point. Again, when at the beginning of free to play, how to actually get people in and comfortable, where you emphasize the things that bring people to gaming, getting the endorphins flowing, having a great time, having fun, and removing those upfront barriers. And I think developers in the Web3 space really need to start thinking that way, of how to just get the player in the game. And then once they're there, they suddenly realize after a while they've got essentially NFTs and they own them. And skipping all those giant blockers on how to get them in. We know how to get players in. We know how to monetize them and have fun. And we have to be careful about putting new barriers in place. So in getting the massive audience, worldwide, most people are gamers of one sort or another, from a simple game on your phone to hardcore players on your console or your PC. But pretty much everyone plays games. So I think you're absolutely right. That's the fantastic way to onboard people. But you have to do it in such a way where they pretty much don't realize it.
Yes, well, so actually, we have made several investments recently that actually addresses that space.
Oh.
First, I think, the whole technical aspect of crypto might be too much for casual gamers. So we are, for example, investing in GameFi-focused wallets where they get rid of all the technical aspects. So it looks like your game account that works across multiple popular games. So that's something that companies trying to resolve in terms of making it easy, and you don't have to worry about learning about how to trade in crypto before you can play a game. That's one thing. But more important thing, this is an investment that happened this year, and one of the issues people found out was that for example, one of our crypto gaming founder in Japan used to work for a Korean game publisher, Netmarble. And when these guys promote traditional Web 2 casual games in Japan, their minimum marketing budget to release a new game is 10. Typically, they spend 30 to 50 million US per title. And of course, for that, they have to acquire millions of users. The problem they found is that today, most of blockchain games don't have that many users. And if you try to acquire users from the traditional blockchain media and communities, you don't have enough place to spend money to acquire users. So one of the problems that they're working on is that the team is now working with the largest gaming industry-focused DSP player, which is serving something like 600 billion impressions per month. And bringing that traffic as an acquisition channel for crypto gaming, so that now when the serious players arrive, okay, I want to spend 10 million or 20 million US to start a new game, they can actually do paid acquisition. So that's one of the pieces that's missing today, because right now, if you're like a traditional crypto, if you're a new crypto gaming player trying to acquire millions of users, there are no channels to do it effectively.
No, absolutely right. I think one of the things that a lot of platform providers in the Web3 space have missed is actually building a community and getting folks in. I've researched and worked with several different platforms. And in almost every case, developers say, okay, well, how can you help me build my community? Because at the end of the day, without the players, you're not going to make a penny, whatever your business model is. So yeah, being able to bring those Web 2 players over is a big problem. But that's brilliant. I'm glad to hear you guys are addressing it that way. That's fantastic.
Yes. And other thing, I think this may not be an issue in U.S. because primary language here is English, but in some of the other international markets we operating, access to information in English is not necessarily the most obvious or the easiest way for the average gamer. So we are actually investing in some traditional media platforms that's built around blockchain gaming and actually building a community out of it. As opposed to say, as we have seen last year, a lot of gamers say, oh, we have a community because we have 50,000 Twitter followers. And of course it's a good attempt to get going, but that's really not a strong, engaging community. So you really have to build something better than you're just Twitter followers.
Yeah, and I think the approach is also going to be key here, where a friend of mine has a studio, I was recently advising him on this game. And his first thought was, we're going to go after the crypto crowd. And, and I said, no, you're going the wrong direction here. I said, first make your game ridiculously fun and addictive, which it is. It's a very light, casual game. And then I said, and then build from there. And the audience that you have to think about languages too is an important thing. It's easy to hit bigger territories like US, Northern Europe, because they speak English. Most of South America speaks Spanish. So, hitting these larger territories with a single language, is a smarter move. But yeah, I think overall, fun games first, super accessible. Those are keys to being successful in this space. If your game can be successful doing that, and even without blockchain technology, then the additional ownership that blockchain technology provides in secondary markets, players trading to players, people making collections, none of that matters if your game's not great first, and if it's not easy, accessible, and fun. So I think too many people are trying to rush to oh my God, we're going to push out content, ride the NFT wave. But in the long term, their game's not gonna succeed.
Yeah, and speaking of that, riding the NFT wave, we've heard interesting comments from our friends at Sega. They said they're actually very scared about bringing their popular titles to the NFT world because there's a huge backlash. And especially, they said this is more prominent in markets like US and Europe.
Yeah.
Their traditional fans actually react very, very negatively when they speak about NFTs, and especially they said the U.S. is one of the markets they're very concerned about offending their core fan base. What is it? What's happening there, Tony? You're based here.
Yeah. Well, I think when Ubisoft made their announcement and got that massive backlash, it was done kind of early on in this space before somebody has essentially done it right, created a really great user experience, and everybody was seeing the beginning of the wave, and a big publisher makes that kind of announcement, and this vocal minority freaks out. Oh, you just want, you want to make us pay all this money, and and one of the bad things that had happened. So a lot of people jumped in, we're going to do a giant NFT sale, spend all this money, and then, oh, you know what, we're not going to launch the game. So thanks for your money, goodbye. And that happened several times. Yeah. And that soured a lot of folks in this space. Like I said before, we saw the same thing at the beginning of free-to-play. Was some bad actors making a quick buck. And that's always going to happen. People are always going to do that. And then I think it's up to the rest of us in the industry who are going to make great games and create a great user experience to do it right. And then we'll see the evolution of our business models take root. Now, unfortunately, they made that announcement, in my opinion, way too early. Got a lot of people freaking out, and it also made other publishers go, oh, well, if that can happen to Ubisoft, it can happen to us, right? So it makes everybody pretty cautious. So it's taken a little bit more time for some of the bigger players to do it. And I've got friends at Sega who said similar things to me, and rightfully so. They need to be cautious. My recommendation to them and to everybody else is, dip your toe in, put a title out there, but make it super fun, super accessible, really easy, so that the player then realizes they've got digital ownership after the fact.
So some of the bigger Japanese game companies, their current thinking is, okay, let's not put our core IPs in this space just yet. Let's just use the smaller titles.
Yep.
Even if ends up, creating a negative feedback, it's not going to hurt their core property. So they're just going to experiment with, I think, smaller IPs and titles first.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's a smart thing to do. You never want to try something dangerous with your biggest IPs.
But having said that, it's actually less of an issue in Asia. So their fans, the traditional fans in Asia, didn't get offended when they talk about NFTs. I don't know. Maybe it's because of maybe age group is a bit different, right? Like I'm the Sonic generation here, and probably older people in North America who remember Sonic from back in the days of Genesis, but maybe Asia has a younger user base, and they don't have all those memories.
Oh, that's true, and we tend to really love our IPs. And I'll tell you something, Akio, you probably don't know. I still have a in-the-box, unopened first-generation Genesis.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
must be worth a lot.
Yeah, I keep that hidden in my basement. Oh crap! Now I have to move it. But it's one of my prized possessions. That's I got that because I used to run publishing at Sega. One popped up and I grabbed it. So
wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever tested the price on eBay?
Yeah, I have, and I just can't give it up. It's one of those things, That and my old Commodore 64, I'm never going to get rid of. But anyway.
Oh, well, actually, there's one thing, now that you mentioned console. One interesting thing about gaming industry is that, so last year, we had kind of global economy slow down. But I just came out of Tokyo Game Show just 2 weeks ago, and they were just publishing their latest numbers. So the gaming industry in Japan grew by 30%.
Fantastic.
And so the whole industry is growing. But what's interesting about the gaming industry is that unlike other types of technology industry where when the new thing comes, all the old stuff died, right? When the Google came, all the other forms of search engines disappeared, right? Alta Vista and others. But in gaming, every new wave of technologies come in. The old ones don't necessarily die. Console industry is still massive, right?
Oh, certainly.
And there's a large PC gaming space that's still there. And smartphone gaming, of course, are also here. And there's, proprietary platforms like Nintendo Switch, which also doing well. So gaming industry seems to be adding new technology layer on top of the existing business, and the existing ones, maybe they're not growing as fast as they used to, but it's still massive. So from that perspective, we're thinking that on the blockchain gaming, it's not necessarily going to, take away your Xbox or PlayStation 5, but still is going to add a significant layer of new growth, perhaps, from the perspective of the gaming industry.
Yeah, and with consoles, I don't think they're ever going away because it just creates such a fantastic, super high quality experience.
I don't mind discs going away, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know my kids just destroy all their discs, and Dad, I don't know what happened. Like, so yeah, I'm happy to buy the digital copy, but you know, with consoles, in my experience, it takes them a little longer to get there when it comes to the new technology shift.
Yes.
But they do. Guys, you know, like a PlayStation team, my former coworker and friend Johnny Eternal really championed free-to-play and helped them make that switch, and it worked out fantastically for them. But it took a while, you know, and so I think there's room for once things on, you know, Web3 and blockchain start to normalize and really become more of a standard, then I think that, you know, consoles will probably embrace it, you know, soon after. It's just my guess, but yeah.
So how much time do we have left?
Oh, yeah.
About 13 minutes.
Yeah, we wanted to open up, you know, questions to the crowd. I want to see if anybody had any particular questions. We can't see that great.
I'm blinded. Okay, there's a lady sitting second row.
I can come to you with the mic. My apologies if I'm not able to get to you in the right order.
Oh, it's so bright.
Thank you. My name is Nikita. I'm the founder and CEO of Niftify. We're a no-code platform that allows business to build their own NFT marketplace without coding.
Yeah.
One of our sectors, focus sector right now is gaming. I'm late to the show, but before this, I was with one of my friends who were talking about, you know, Oculus and what kind of experience she's able to have now with Oculus. And that kind of gives us a picture of how the metaverse will look in the future. And when we focus more on the gaming, I want to hear about your views in terms of, you know, how you were talking about console, but, you know, how the hardware will also evolve with the NFTs and digital, how we're going to move, how we're going to use the digital assets in the future, and with the interoperability of all the assets in different games, different metaverses. Yeah, so.
I have one example, perhaps I can give from my portfolio company to address that point. So one of the issues that came out is when different games start putting out NFTs, whether it's a weapon or it's a piece of land or whatever, and then if those things suddenly show up in a generic marketplace like OpenSea, it's very hard to estimate the value, right? Because weapon has different parameters, and you need to understand the context in the game. Same with piece of land. So we are seeing emergence of gaming-specific NFT marketplaces where you can actually understand the value of a specific item because the platform itself reflects all the necessary information from the game. So you can actually, it's just like going to online real estate site, right? You can see the value of a piece of property based on what kind of school district you're in, the local crime rate, and also. So you need all the metadata to understand the value of specific NFT. And especially in the context of gaming, they're very important, right? Because you don't want to just buy a weapon just because it looks cool. You want to know how powerful it is.
Know what
in
its
the
real
context
utility is, yeah.
Yes. So we think there might be actually need for these kind of marketplace. We have invested one in Asia, but it's just one example, making sense of NFTs in the context of gaming.
And you touched on interoperability too. There's not a lot of that going on, but I think there's huge potential for that. And I get asked about it on a regular basis. Now, as a game developer, one interesting thing, and I'm wondering if we're going to see this start to pop up. If I, as a game developer, have my game out there, I can look at anybody's wallet for any NFT, and it's up to me as a game developer if I want to give them utility in my game for whatever NFTs in their wallet. So depending upon your collection, I could say, hey, if you got a bunch of Bored Apes, come on in, and we'll give you all these things. So it's going to be very interesting to see how different developers grant utility in their titles for different NFT collections that already exist. Now, they're not making money off the sale up front, but it's a great way to get people who are interested in a certain IP and have a bunch of NFTs to come to your game. So potentially an interesting user acquisition tool. But I don't think that there's not enough owners of NFTs to make it worth their while. You don't have 20 million people who own a certain brand of NFT, and I'll give you utility if you come on in. So those communities don't exist yet, but in the future it could.
Within 1 year.
You think they will within a year?
I'm doing it.
You're doing
You're
it?
doing it, okay.
I like that attitude too. I'm making it happen. Very cool.
All right, thank you.
I
Any
see,
other questions?
Yeah.
I see another hand, some couple of hands over there. Yeah. I think I'm going to have a tan.
Yeah.
All right. Curious, what kind of gaming assets do you see gaining the most traction today? And for the next wave of gaming assets, do you see the need for a new business model or experience?
Can you say that again? It was hard to hear you.
Yeah, sorry. What kind of gaming assets do you see gaining the most traction in today's market? And for the next wave or boom for gaming assets, do you see the need for a new business model or experience to happen?
So the question was game assets. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm curious what kind of game assets you see gaining the most traction in today's market?
Gotcha. Well, yeah, one of the things that is interesting when it comes to collectibles is how really cool it looks, right? Especially with games like CCGs, they're usually very heavy into artwork. So I think that gamers take the utility and the looks maybe even farther than the average person who's just out there buying art NFTs, in my opinion. So I think it's those kind of assets to digital assets in 3D and like parallax, doing some really cool stuff is going to become more and more important. And I think that those digital items need to, the artwork to reflect how cool they are. I see a lot of garbage NFTs, sold that are just somebody taking a single image and just modifying it a little bit in Photoshop 10,000 times and selling them all. I don't think gamers are going to put up with that when it comes to NFTs in games, right? So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with Tony, and actually maybe it's not the right way to think about, okay, what kind of game assets going to be needed. I think we have to think about, okay, what is the great game we can develop? And the assets are simply a supporting act to the game, right?
Yeah.
It should not be the main focus of the game. And you may have created a game that's more ripe for speculation than long-term playability of the game.
Yeah, and also there are games where the gameplay is ridiculously fun, but it's not high-res graphics, not amazing assets. Games, some old school games like Realm of the Mad God is a good example there. It's just all pixelated but super fun. Surviv.io from Congregate is another one that's just stupid fun, but not great graphics. Stupid amazing fun. I mean, not stupid bad fun. And I think another good example is Loot.io. So these games that have incredible gameplay, but are super simple on the graphic side. So assets don't matter nearly as much there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Yeah. Go for it.
Hi. First of all, thanks for the talk. Really appreciate you guys being here. I'm really interested in play to earn, but it seems like the point of entry is so expensive right now for popular games. If we're trying to get more players to come to the space, how can we lower that cost of entry?
Yeah, so I think the first generation of play to earn, like Axie, and even a little more recent entry like Steppen, I think they both haven't been able to solve this issue. When you create a pure play to earn, and you create a community around how much you can earn playing that game, you have definitely this influx of users who are there to make money. And speculative money pours in very early on, and what has happened in both of them is that token prices went all the way up and then collapsed, and they both of them really haven't come back up significantly since the collapse. So I think in order to for this industry to grow in a more healthy way, there probably has to be less emphasis on earn. And so in Japan, for example, when we are talking about the developers who are working on the next iteration of play to earn, they actually don't call it play to earn anymore, more like play and earn. So still emphasis on playing, and you get to earn something while you're playing, but it's not work, right? You're not going to play a game every day just to make money, because that puts a wrong kind of incentive. And when the incentive is on earning side, you would end up creating an economy that's going to collapse, because speculators will come in, and when they make their money and they sell all the assets and leave, and the regular players are left standing there with everything they thought they invested in have now worth nothing. And so really, we are starting to see also some of the next generation of play and earn games, maybe where you don't have to actually buy expensive assets. Maybe some NFT assets are free, something that you earn if you play long enough, or the game platform or third party provides leasing protocol so that you can actually just borrow what you need to play rather than buying something very expensive up front. So these innovations are happening today. I don't think anyone has figured out the right model yet, but the whole industry is still experimenting on what could potentially create more sustainable ecosystem around play to earn.
Yeah, and I've never liked the phrase play to earn. Just the word earn, when it comes to gaming, immediately I think of a guy with a pickaxe, like, I'm here, I gotta earn my pay, and that's not fun, right? Gaming and fun go hand in hand, and you want that endorphin release. And when you think about, play to earn, it immediately conjures just me having to sit here and grind all day long for a couple of bucks. Instead, I think the focus is on digital ownership going forward, which is a much healthier way for us to grow in this space. So with the partners I've been working with in the last year, most of them have changed their phrasing from play to earn, and their focus as well, to play and own, right? Because digital ownership is really at the core here. So playing and owning the things that you've gotten, that you spend money on, that you get as rewards, things like that. So the ownership, I think, is a much better focus.
Yeah, I agree with Tony. But there's actually one area of play and earn, potentially, that's growing. It's actually in the form of competitive sports. So we have seen new types of blockchain guilds emerging with people with background in esports. So we have invested in a team in India that actually comes from the strong mobile esports background. And recently, we also backed a team from Korea called SkyGG. They also have esports background. So the idea is merge blockchain gaming into competitive esports. And of course, there is prize money to be earned. But it's a little bit different from, say, pure play to earn in a context of, say, Axie.
It's funny. It also struck me years ago. I'm a big League of Legends fan. I had gotten the PAX Sever skin, and because there's only so many that were ever given out, and I had people offering me, still do, thousands of dollars to try and buy my account just to get this skin. So I realized digital ownership goes a whole long way. And but anyway, so I think we're about out of time here.
We have time for one more question, probably. There we go.
Yeah, let's take one more.
Sure.
Thank you. Are you guys seeing with play to earn those concepts being exploited through automation, machine learning, AI? Taking control of the screen and mouse and just beating everybody, all the human players?
I didn't quite get that. Can you say?
Oh, no, you're talking about bots taking advantage of play-to-earn
Okay.
ecosystems and basically beating all the humans. Yeah, I mean, I think it has happened. Even with Stephen, I think I've heard there are some farmers in China that created a Stephen farms and creating kind of, artificial devices, making it look like it's walking and earning points. And of course, those things does destroy token economy. And I think that happens a lot. Again, if the emphasis is earning, because then there's more financial incentives. But if there's a far more emphasis on playing, and I think there will be less incentive to speculate, because the game itself needs to create token economy that's not inflationary, so that it doesn't create this sudden inflation of certain items that draws more speculators into the game. So I think right now, from the developers' point of view, they need to figure out how to make the game fun enough so that the ecosystem will last. Because if you think about most of the popular play-to-earn games today, the life cycle is very, very short. Actually, compared to traditional gaming, it's super short. And that's definitely not sustainable. So we think the way to go against the bot is not to focus on the earning aspect of the play-to-earn. But having said that, there's another way that I look at this space. If you think of this as input-output, right? So if your game is the whole, this is the bank, and there's an inflow of money, usually that comes with the new users coming in and spending money, and the outflow of money when they cash out. So play-to-earn creates huge incentive for people to cash out when the price goes up, right? And often, and after people cash out, token prices collapse, and there's less incentive for people to put in more money. So that's when the whole economy dies. But that's because most of the times those people are not playing the game for the fun of it, right? So if you stop earning, there's no more incentive to play. And I think that's where the death spiral has happened in most of the play-to-earn games. And for this economy to survive, you have to basically offer a much better entertainment playability. So even if you're not earning, people are still coming in to put in money because it's fun to play that game. And by the way, that's not a new concept. Most of the successful games actually have this happening already, right? People coming in, spending money every day because it's fun. So, but that basic understanding and the basic concept of all the traditional gaming is sometimes missing in the blockchain gaming today. So but we think that's going to change with a new generation of games coming up.
Right on.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the discussion, Tony and Akio. Let's please give them a big hand.
Thank you.